Welcome to all those who made it back after breakfast. told Devaki, I said, this is the difficult, after eating, I said, classes for both the speaker and for the hearer. Difficult when you eat, because all your blood just goes to your stomach, I realize that I think tomorrow morning I'm just going to have fruit for breakfast. I'll have a little more intelligence, hopefully. So, and also the book I'll bring tomorrow morning. Classes have been so nice, Bhagavatam classes. Topic is very good. And you can see there's so many questions. When Krishna consciousness gives so many answers, but every topic brings so many more questions. Today I was looking at my list of letters to put on the Facebook page, and there were two very interesting ones. One of them, in Prabhupada, there was one god sister of mine, Gopal Krishna Maharaj's ex-wife back in the 60s and 70s at the end. She used to send Prabhupada a lot of letters and ask him questions. And this was in 1970, this one. So it was about at that time, in the 60s up until 1970, when you could pretty much, anyone could send Srila Prabhupada a letter, and you would get a response from Srila Prabhupada. By the time I joined ISKCON in April of 1971, one of the first things you learned was you didn't write letters to Srila Prabhupada. If you had questions, you would ask your leader, the temple president, or senior devotee or something, that Prabhupada wasn't to be disturbed with so many questions, which was, it came from Srila Prabhupada himself, that he had to do translating work, and as the movement grew, Prabhupada wanted that his senior disciples, that they take the responsibility of dealing with all the day-to-day affairs, all the questions that everyone had. Otherwise, it expanded so rapidly, and Prabhupada was so caring that if he got a letter, he answered every letter. He had such an etiquette. And you're talking, discussing many times, we discuss different devotees as we become hopefully more mature in Krishna consciousness. We realize more and more how uncivilized we are, and how little human qualities we have. It's one thing that how uncultured we are, especially as Westerners. We consider ourselves to be very cultured as Westerners. There's a famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi when someone said to him, "What do you think of Western civilization?" And he said, "I think it's a good idea." You understand? Because he was in England, so the gentleman was wanting to know what he thought of this Western, this very advanced civilization, but his answer was very sharp, and he was saying, "I think it's a good idea. You require civilization because, a proper Vedic person doesn't see the West as being civilized at all." Like Prabhupada would say, one of the things being with Prabhupada, I remember as a young boy, was how he would say in his lectures and he would read in his books, he said, "I didn't go to the West to learn how to eat with knife and fork." And as an American, growing up in America, we were so uncultured that even that process of knife and fork wasn't a big deal. Where no elbows on the table, all these things which the English had because they were very cultured. They knew how to hold their knife, which hand the knife and the fork, and everything they did with the knife and fork, using both of these instruments to carve away on their carcass. So that was civilized. It's considered a very civilized thing to do. And it wasn't until 10 years ago when I moved to England and I lived there for 10 years that I really understood Prabhupada's statement, because you saw just how much the British considered themselves to be so civilized in this process. But Prabhupada, he rebuked that very point in civilization, saying they didn't go there to learn anything from the West. They came to teach you, they came to give you Krishna. To the point where Prabhupada didn't use knife and fork. He ate with his hand. Sometimes you'll see Prabhupada, if the spoon was there, he put the spoon in his dal. But Prabhupada, like any proper person, he would eat with his right hand. He would mix everything up on his plate. And, in the West, we consider this to be most uncivilized, not eating with your hands. I mean, what a terrible thing. And if you go outside here, you sit at some place and you stick your hand in, it's considered horrible. But we learn this is civilized. So it's everything, as Westerners, everything we learned was backwards to the point where we're not civilized, we're barbarians. Saying we come from a long history, generations of people who are uncivilized. And that's in us. That's in our genes, it's in our ancestry. It's a very difficult thing to overcome. And it's one of the reasons Prabhupada, when he came to the West and he introduced Krishna consciousness, and gradually, as we can see from the Bhagavatam, so many instructions are there, which for people from India, who are, by Westerners are considered uncivilized, many of these things are very natural for them to do. I was mentioning this yesterday, very easy for them to do. Because there's this peacefulness which is just there. It's not always that gnawing desire to have to do something, to have to be somewhere, to have to get something that I don't have. All these different desires which we have, they're just not there. So one can sit down very peacefully and chant Hare Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada, when he went to the West, he saw our nature. And besides giving us our minimum of 16 rounds, following regulative principles, which as Prabhu was saying this morning, this is the beginning of human life. Following 4 regulative principles, that means you're on the very basic of human level. If you're not doing that, then you're an animal. This is animal level. If one's not following these basic things, then you're no better than an animal. This is animal-like. Prabhupada would so often show us how much we were like that, unless we were Krishna conscious, unless we were being Krishna conscious. And it was one of the wonderful things to be with a pure devotee, because he was always able to open your eyes. Our eyes are always have those cataracts, material disease. And Prabhupada, he could cut through that, and he would show what was real. He would show us the reality so many times. On morning walks, this was an opportunity for so many devotees to see that we say, Prabhupada, despite so many shortcomings, I could see how Prabhupada did things at times, and I could understand how he did it, even though it wasn't natural for me. Just by being with him so long, I would have a little understanding how he would do things, or how he would see things, or how he would say things. It wasn't natural for me, but given the opportunity, I would be able to understand. Like on a morning walk, Prabhupada, in Mexico City, and so many devotees were there, a dozen devotees, and it was in a park, federal park, and Prabhupada was walking, and I was side holding the microphone. So now I had been with him for 2 years. So it was a long time, holding a microphone, recording his classes, his conversations on his morning walk. So he stopped, and it was a huge tree, and it was dead. So he looked, and he said, so why is the tree dead? And this was like a typical morning walk question Prabhupada would have. And we had questions, and sometimes Prabhupada, he would ask the questions to see what we're learning, to see what we understand, to see how we see things. So he said, why is the tree dead? And when Prabhupada would ask the question, everybody would get nervous. That was the first thing, because now you're being challenged. It's like a challenge by your spiritual master. And you also understand there can be so many different things you could say. What is the right thing to say to him? What does Prabhupada want to hear? So many things would run through your head. And me being with him 2 years, my first reaction was, I'm not going to say anything, because I know it's very easy to give the wrong answer. Because if Prabhupada asks a question, there's a trick behind it. It's not going to be what you think. It's going to be something else. So I learned very early when Prabhupada asked questions, let the other people, let the other fools and rascals, let them take it, let Prabhupada chastise them when they say something wrong. So everybody stops. And then a senior devotee, GPC sannyasi, and he looks and he said, well, it's died because it became diseased. And Prabhupada goes, I knew this was going to happen. You can't think, and Prabhupada gives you that look, this little. So now everybody's, and Prabhupada still stopped, got his cane planted in the ground. We're not going anywhere, And he's just waiting. Next devotee was Prabhupada, old age. So now we're going through the process, right? Birth, disease, old age, death, so people are thinking, it's Krishna conscious, right? This is what we're learning, these things, the process of disintegration, the material body. So Prabhupada can go, so now everyone's like, so Prabhupada's still, and I'm thinking, the whole time my mind's always thinking so many things. I'm thinking, what does Prabhupada, what does he want to hear? What does he want to hear? And so then I looked, and I looked at Prabhupada, and they said, why was the tree dead? The roots. What about them?
They could not pick up nourishment. The roots were not attached to it.
Somebody doesn't.
The soul left?
The soul left the tree, therefore the tree is dead. So that's what I said. I said, because the spirit soul is left in Prabhupada. So it's a simple thing. On some level now, everyone will all say, I knew that. He wanted to know, I was looking for a more complex answer. But that's why, because the spirit soul left, there's nothing there. There's no life left. That is the life, is the spirit soul. So I would have never said that had I not been with Prabhupada walking around for 2 years. But because I was with him, it made me think, what does he think? It's not what I would have thought naturally, and it's not what I didn't think anything. I didn't even, walking by, it's a dead tree. Everywhere you go, there's live trees, dead things, live things. But Prabhupada wanted to see, he wanted to stop for a moment and just inject that little bit of Krishna consciousness in us, how to see things, how to be able to see Krishna in everything, how to see the spirit in everything, and to see the difference, to be able to understand the differences. So by the association, it allowed me at least to think, what would Prabhupada say? Or in other situations, what would Prabhupada do? So this is our business. This is how we become civilized. This is how we become human beings, is to associate with an advanced soul. Moment's association with the pure devotee. So we all have that opportunity all the time to have association with advanced devotees, association with Srila Prabhupada. in that letter to Ekiyani, Prabhupada said, I always answer your questions. He said, I never mind answering any of your questions. He said, but if you read the books, he said, you'll find the answers, all of your questions. He said, you can also ask your husband for answers to your questions. He was Gopal Krishna at the time. He said, and you should read the books. He said, because all of your questions will be answered if you read seriously these books, if you read over and over. And he said, in the process, of course, for understanding and for knowing the answers, it's not just reading, but then it's applying what we read in the books, which is to perform devotional service to Krishna. He said, and by that process, all realization will come by serving the spiritual master, by sincerely engaging in service to the spiritual master, sincerely and steadily, gradually, all your questions will be answered. So this is our opportunity in Krishna consciousness. So many questions we have, but all these things come through realization. Realizations through hard work by serving the spiritual master. Another one of the letters today was in the same vein and the same line. And Prabhupada was chastising a disciple who went to India. This also was in 1970. And he said, I sent you to India to perform a service. He said, and you didn't do it. He said, at this time, he said, I don't want any of our disciples, he said, so many, he said, of the disciples, of my disciples that want to go to India. He said, now again, 1970, he said, we have no temple even in India. He said, so if they go there, it's just for sightseeing. He said, this sightseeing business, he said, this is not devotional service. He said, this isn't what's prescribed by the spiritual master, simply to do some sightseeing, and then when you're done, you want to come back home. He wanted them to stay in India. But this devotee, he went there, and this is a desire a lot of us have. You think you want to go to India, see so many things. But he said, one has to engage in devotional service to the spiritual master. He said, if you're ready to accept it, he said, I'll tell you what you can do. He said, I'll give you instructions and tell you what you can do, what service I want you to do there. He said, if you're prepared to accept my instructions. He said, and if you're not, then do anything you want. That's exactly what he said. And when I read that, I just knew exactly how Prabhupada said that, because he would say like that. And sometimes disciple Prabhupada would ask them to do something. And I was witness to it a few times. Again, somehow or other, when you were Prabhupada's servant, you would find yourself in the room, in Prabhupada's room. We say like the fly on the wall. You were just somehow or other, you were just there, and you got to witness things. Prabhupada wasn't one necessarily who, when he would call someone in a room, he would say, you have to leave, because we're having a private conversation. Prabhupada said just the opposite. He said, we have nothing to hide. Imagine having to expose yourself in front of others before Srila Prabhupada, with Srila Prabhupada. But he would say, we have nothing to hide. And that's a devotee. A devotee, pure devotee, has nothing to hide, because all he's doing is Krishna's business. He's engaged in service. Nothing else. There's no secrets. For some of us, we have secrets because we know what's to be done and what's not to be done, but sometimes we're not doing it. So very afraid we expose that to others and to society, places that pressure on us and to do the right thing. But at the same time, it puts us in a situation where sometimes we'd rather people don't know what it is we're doing behind a closed door. But Prabhupada was never like that. He closed his door. Prabhupada liked quiet. He liked privacy to do his work and all. But there was nothing going on any different, ever. So he would bring people in. He would tell me, go get such and such. Go get this person, go get this person, go get this Swami. So what would happen was, when I would get them, I would naturally just come in the room, bringing them. It was like, I was bringing them into Prabhupada's room and then offer obeisances. And sometimes Prabhupada was so quick to speak, I didn't even have a chance to get up. So then you're just there, you're just sitting there, in front of Srila Prabhupada with whoever he was speaking to, whoever he was having a conversation with. And sometimes it resulted in different results. Sometimes you wished you weren't there. This one time I wished I wasn't there, because it was a time when Prabhupada started yelling, and I never liked to be in that situation. I found that very frightening to be around Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada had different levels. He chastised me many times, and he would become loud. Prabhupada could get loud. But then there was a certain place where Prabhupada would go. And in general, it only happened when he was speaking to one of his disciples who had philosophically altered, who changed something. Just like when we had, back in the 70s, some of you may know there was a thing that was called the Gopi Baba Club. So this was one of the philosophical deviations that Prabhupada smashed very quickly when he found out it was going on in Los Angeles. And it was a group of devotees. They were reading Prabhupada's books, but they were picking and choosing what they wanted to read, and what they wanted to read was about the Gopis, Gopi Baba Club, that's what it was called. So Prabhupada, that was, I called it his Nrsimha incarnation, because Prabhupada would just turn red, because this was the most dangerous thing. Disciple could fall down, sannyasi could fall down, get married, whatever. That was just being less than civilized. This was our conditioning as Westerners. That was something Prabhupada understood. He said, you're Westerners. Once he said, my disciples, he said, they've done so much intoxication and had so much illicit sex. He said, if it wasn't for this chanting of Hare Krishna, he said, you couldn't do anything. He understood that about us. It was only by chanting gradually we could purify our hearts, because we were so uncivilized, so barbaric, and we were malechas. We came from malechas. So we were most qualified people to become devotees by mercy of Lord Chaitanya. That was our qualification. We were the most fallen. So Prabhupada went right to the very center of the most fallen, to New York City, which was the most fallen place within the USA. And there he started this society. But he understood everything was resting on Prabhupada. He also understood that. Prabhupada was very humble. He never would say, I've done this, I've come to the West, I started this. He gave everything his spiritual master's desire, by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, by the chanting of the holy name. And all of those things are there. But it was all through Srila Prabhupada. He was the agency to make everything happen. But being very humble devotee, he never would accept any, he wouldn't accept it. It was him that was doing all these things. So, anyway, as he said, it was just by this chanting, just by chanting of Hare Krishna. And this is still the process, and it's always like it stresses chanting Hare Krishna, chanting minimum 16 rounds, the importance of chanting, how important it is that we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Otherwise our destiny is assured what will happen. We can't maintain in Krishna consciousness. So this feature of Srila Prabhupada, when he smashed these devotees, this was in Los Angeles in the Gopi Baba Club, was one of these times Prabhupada would become just so furious because he knew they could destroy the whole society. Falling down, having personal problems, that's not going to destroy. That might destroy your devotional creeper, but the society as a whole will go on. But if someone brings in these different philosophies, very dangerous. If someone starts with adultery, as Prabhupada always said, don't change. Don't change anything. He knew another condition of Westerners. The Westerners, something you don't, in India, they don't change. You know, for good or for bad. You know, generation after generation, they do the same thing. And when I got a little haircut before I left, you know, the barber, he was like 25 or something, and already his, little son was sitting in there, 5 years old or something. In a few years, he's going to be cutting hair, just like his father did. They don't change. This is varnashram. Huh? One understands their situation, they perform their duty, we do it for Krishna. It's Daivi varnashram, and it's a transcendental, it becomes transcendentalized by doing everything for Krishna. But do your duty. So as disciples, our duty is to understand what Prabhupada wants. To do that, you have to read his books, you have to associate with people that have good understanding of Prabhupada's desires and to do what's necessary. So this one day I go in the room and I bring this, it was the GBC in India at the time. And India was a struggle for all of us. Westerners in India, there were a few that went there and never wanted to leave. But for the most part, people have spent some time there, and for a variety of reasons, from being sick all the time to not being able to preach, because we're all preachers. We were trained from the beginning. We always wanted to preach and give Krishna to others. And in India, that was a difficult thing to do, because as soon as you said anything, they'd say, yes, I know. You couldn't teach them. You're going to talk Bhagavad Gita with them? I say, yes. What do you know about Bhagavad Gita? I've been chanting Bhagavad Gita since I was a baby. I know Krishna, I know Shiva, all of them. Yes. So this was their attitude. So for preachers, devotee preachers, this sometimes was very difficult, because they're here in 1974, 1975. In America, in the West, it's exploding. Krishna consciousness is exploding, and millions of books are being distributed, and devotees every day are being made in the temples. So this devotee, who was GBC in India, he wanted to go back to America and really preach, not just manage things in India and make life members, collect 111 rupees, and make a life member, and they get a card that entitles them to go to any temple in the world for 3 days for free. Just, imagine, you get, to them that's like getting a, Hilton hotel card saying you can go to any hotel you want for 3 days, and then you go to another one for the rest of your life. This is how they sold life membership. So for an Indian to go stay in a guest room in a temple anywhere, this was wonderful. Free prasad, place to stay. You visit your relatives in that city, and then you go on to the next place. You take darshan. But there is no preaching. So he came into the room, and he said to Prabhupada, and this is why the meeting was going on, he said, I want to go back to America. And Prabhupada said, no. He said, I need you to stay here. He said, this is now you have Vrindavan temples being constructed, Mayapur, Juhu's going up, everything is going on. And he said, I need you to stay here. But Prabhupada, there's no preaching here. Prabhupada said, when you go out, you make like members, this and that. He said, that's, So then he was saying, Prabhupada, you can't preach in India. Everyone knows, everyone says they know everything. He says there's no one to preach to. In America, there's so many things going on, so much preaching, book distribution. He said, I can go to schools, universities. And Prabhupada just kept saying, no, I need you here. He said, I need you to do this service. So what started out as a conversation started to escalate as this devotee was just, we would say, burnt out in India. He'd been in there for 5 years or so, and he just wanted to go. I can understand. And Prabhupada, this is it. It's serious business. Spiritual life is serious business. Having a spiritual master, serious business. It's not something to be taken lightly. And Srila Prabhupada, he was very merciful. Huh? We have that expression, hard like the thunderbolt, soft like the rose. So that aspect was also there. I was generally, Prabhupada knew me, so he was usually like the rose with me because he knew I would just crumble and collapse on the floor if he was to be very strong with me. He never told me what to do. He would always ask me. That's how weak I was in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada would ask me things. But with him, he said, I want you here. But this devotee was also, unlike me, had very strong personality. So he's saying, no, I want to go. And he's getting loud. And Prabhupada got louder. He couldn't out-argue Srila Prabhupada. And I was sitting in the corner, and I'm like shaking, just being witness to this, much less if I was a part of it. I was just witnessing this. And Prabhupada said, I need you here to do this. So now we're getting really loud. And this devotee just didn't want to do it. And he's getting louder, and I was completely, just beside myself because it was something that I could have never done. This was a devotee who had joined very early, so he had a different relationship with Prabhupada than I did when I came along many years later. He knew Prabhupada when they called him Swamiji. So in those days, things gradually were being learned, understanding of the guru and disciple and the process of devotional service, so many things. But anyway, it escalated to this point where Prabhupada was in this Nrsingadev mode, and he just wanted him to surrender, and that was it. And the devotee said, no, I have to go. And then Prabhupada just stopped, and he said, you just chant your 16 rounds, follow the regulative principles, and do any damn thing you want. Now this, you have to understand Srila Prabhupada in this. This was Prabhupada's mercy to all of us, that ultimately Prabhupada was pure devotee and understand Krishna was in control of everything, and with his disciples, Prabhupada would always come to the point, as he did in this letter with this other devotee, saying, if you're not prepared to follow my instructions, then do anything you want. So that was the same mentality I heard, only it was a lot stronger when he said it to this devotee 5 years later. But Prabhupada is so merciful that what he wants most of us is just to become Krishna conscious. And to do that, the most important thing, he wants to see we follow the regulative principles. We chant for 16 rounds. And then somehow or other, you do whatever. Like you would say, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Of course, as far as being civilized, as far as being a civilized disciple, this is the lowest level that you chant your rounds, you follow the principles, and then you just do what you want. You live your nice, comfortable life. We can say this is Krishna conscious activity, but this isn't a surrendered disciple of the spiritual master. To surrender is to know the desires of the spiritual master and to make that your life and soul. And this is what gives a devotee the power to do what Srila Prabhupada did. Imagine that kind of power, that kind of potency, to be completely surrendered 100%, to not want anything except to carry out the orders of your spiritual master. And to know his mind so well, you know everything that he wants, because Krishna is there in the heart. The instructions are there. Prabhupada's instructions are there for sincere disciples. Super Soul is there. So when one's surrendered, he always knows what to do. Prabhupada would say that devotee, he always knows what to do. And he said in the letter to Ekiyani, all your questions will be answered if you serve sincerely, how you perform devotional service sincerely. All realization will come. And that's also an important instruction, because it means there isn't somewhere you have to go to have somebody tell you about Krishna consciousness, to tell you about higher rasas, to elevate you to another platform. When you're ready, everything will come to you by realization, by your surrender. Otherwise, just opening up a book isn't going to bring you to the next level. Opening up a book, understanding what Prabhupada's saying, then realization will come. But it's through service. And service, the highest level, is to know what Srila Prabhupada wants to do and then to do it. So that devotee did go to the USA. Another GPC was made in India under emergency. And Prabhupada, of course, would never reject a disciple. And he very happily went there and did so many things, so much Sankirtan, and made devotees, everything he wanted to do with Prabhupada's blessings. Because Prabhupada never rejected any of his disciples. Only rejection comes from the disciple. This was another thing that I love so much with Srila Prabhupada is you begin to see the most basic human qualities, loyalty. And this is a devotee. Prabhupada's loyalty was there. As soon as he accepted you as a disciple, it meant that he was going to see that you go back home, back to Godhead, even if he has to drag you. He said in one letter, never again will he be, he said his karmi name. He said, I've made that. That's my duty. He said that I'll not let him become karmi, even he goes away. So this is what Prabhupada does. He keeps dragging us. For those who give him a struggle, he comes, gives us various lessons. And hopefully we can learn. The more quickly you learn, and the less severe your lessons are. But if you don't, you keep fighting this process of Krishna consciousness. You keep trying to enjoy the material world, then your lessons, they become greater. The difficulties become greater. You get smashed until eventually you have no option but to surrender to Krishna, surrender to the spiritual master. But this starts just by chanting. So Prabhupada, when we talk about all these things, Varnashram Dharma, so many things, Prabhupada came, he had to do everything at the same time. And this is why it creates so much confusion in our society. Prabhupada came to the West, not just to teach one thing, he came to teach everybody Krishna consciousness, and had to engage them in devotional service to give it to others all around the world in a few short years. He knew he wasn't going to be. When I said Prabhupada knew he was only going to be here for so long. So he had a mission to do. So that mission meant many rules and regulations that we would see in society, they didn't matter. They were broken. Like I said yesterday, I was a grahasta. I was married, I had a child I never saw. I was with Prabhupada. I saw my son first time, I think he was 6 months old. It's the first time I saw him. And I saw him for 2 weeks, and then I didn't see him for another 6 months. But Prabhupada didn't say to me, oh, why don't you stay, you should stay with your wife and child. You know, that's your duty. Yeah, that's what we read in Bhagavatam. Isn't this our duty? Grahastha, you stay with your family. And that is our duty. But then sometimes you have to understand a higher principle. So Prabhupada it was an emergency situation. It was special. It wasn't meant to be forever. The standard things are what we have to be ready to apply, be ready to teach others, be ready gradually to bring these things into society. So if we just look at what Prabhupada did, this is what we say, time and place, and what he did in his emergency situation, and say, well, this is what I should do, you know. I see this devotee, that devotee, all these grahastas, they didn't live with their wife, they didn't take care of their families, they didn't raise their children. No, but they were doing what Prabhupada wanted them to do. So we always have to understand, it's not what we want to do, we have to understand what the spiritual master wants to do. But he also had an understanding that at that time, my wife had a place she was living at, it was provided for because I was Prabhupada's servant, everything was taken care of. And then he knew eventually I would be back there again, which I was, and it's ultimately why I left Srila Prabhupada's personal service, because I just wanted to be with my family, you know. But even at that time, it wasn't Prabhupada's desire, it was mine. I mean, he let me do it. That was 75, June 1975. 2 years later, I was thinking, that was really stupid. I had no idea Prabhupada was going to leave in 2 years. I thought he'd be around 30 more years or something. I didn't think at all. So, we have to use our intelligence, and I thought, wow, just because of my desires of sense gratification, my desires to do what I want, I gave up such a wonderful service. And Prabhupada ultimately said, chant Hare Krishna, you can do what you want. But he knew it was best for me, and that's what he wanted me to do. And it was the service I was qualified to do at the time. So now we have to understand how to apply all of these things Srila Prabhupada has given us in his books, in the Bhagavatam and Gita Nectar of Devotion, the way things are now. And we have to be models. We have to be model in society to show others how to do things. It's always what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted everything at the same time. He wanted us to do everything. This is a Vaishnava. He's not Brahmin, he's not Kshatriya, he's not Vaishya, he's not Sudra, Grahastha, Sannyasi, all these things. You have to be prepared to do anything at any time. This is what he expected at that time. So now as everything gets bigger, we should be able to have the intelligence and the maturity and the understanding how to do things properly in society, how to show others the ideal society, like here I'm living on the farm, that simple Krishna-conscious lifestyle, requires so many things. That makes life much easier already when you don't have to have so many gadgets. We were talking about the iPhone. I mean, how interesting. All these things, that's what they're called. It's, the iPod, the iPhone, everything's I. I, it's all about I. It's all about the me. And it costs a fortune. I got a little Nokia somebody gave me. I don't even know how to use any of those screens still, I don't want to learn. I can't afford to, but that's another thing. But, does that make sense with everyone? Understand? So Prabhupada was not into destroying family life. He was into creating proper family life. But sometimes he used the various family members to do it as well. And to understand that. In general, others he would always say, just like it says there in Bhagavatam, first thing was, if you're going to have a family, first thing you do, he told one disciple, you have to be prepared to have a place for your family to live. You have to earn a living. Just that word, when you were saying today, earn. That's a very specific word. To earn a living. right within that word earn, it means something honest. Earn it by your hard work. It's not something you scheme and scam. This was another thing that we were very expert at in the very beginning, in the early days of Krishna consciousness. You can do anything for Krishna, because everything belongs to Krishna anyway, so whatever I do, however I get it, it's okay, because it's already Krishna's. I'm just liberating it from these other people and giving it to Krishna. And of course, I'll take a little percentage along the way. This mentality existed a lot. This is again our Western mind is always scheming how to do things. Even when Prabhupada was here, one time a devotee brought a briefcase, one of those silver metal briefcase filled with money, gave it to Prabhupada. Then later on, Prabhupada's secretary said, Prabhupada, this money has come from, illegal means. And Prabhupada said, oh. He said, well, this is already here now. He said, so we use this for BBT. He said, but tell him he has to stop this activity. What he had already done, Prabhupada accepted, purified it, use it in Krishna service. He said, but tell him you shouldn't do that anymore. So Prabhupada wasn't into us doing things illegally, just to push on Krishna consciousness. So he would say everything should be done legitimate, everything should be legal, everything should be earned. Otherwise there's always consequences. You can't cheat. Nor does Krishna need anything from you by cheating method. I would say Krishna has everything. He can give us everything immediately. He said, but if we're not prepared, he said, then of course he won't give. Any questions?
You said this about Prabhupada never rejected any of his disciples. Was there one or two examples where Prabhupada had to completely reject one? Or
well, again, they rejected him. It was them who left, and Prabhupada gave him one. Was Nitai, who's famous, and who asked him if he could accept initiation from a Baba in Radhakund. And the quote is, Prabhupada said, you have my, he asked for his blessings. He asked for Prabhupada's blessings to go to a Rasika guru, And Prabhupada said, you have my blessings to go to hell. So, and if he would have come back, offered his obeisance, Prabhupada made such a mistake, Prabhupada just take him back. Prabhupada was just nothing but mercy and compassion. This is whole, everything about him was mercy. He was so merciful. I don't know do you have another one?
Wasn't there an instance in New York where Prabhupada told someone, forget about becoming Krishna conscious in this lifetime, or...
That's a blessing. It means that in some lifetime you'll become Krishna conscious.
Didn't Prabhupada say to these who went to ask for the blessings finisher that you will meet, I bless you to meet the Paka Guru in 1,000 lifetimes or something like that?
Bless you too.
But Prabhupada also said, I bless you to meet the Paka Guru in 1,000 lifetimes or something like that. I heard some instance there was a devotee called Drita Rastra or something in an incident in Vrindavan, also somewhere. Yeah. But he never gave up.
Yeah.
Prabhupada never gave up on him.
No, you never give up on anyone. Again, this was the understanding of, this is why it's very serious to accept spiritual master. It's not like your maternal father and mother, you have them for this lifetime, and you have a debt. Of course you have a debt to your parents, to your mother in particular. Lord Chaitanya says, it's the only debt you can't repay in one lifetime is the debt you have to your mother for giving birth to you. Such is the position of Mataji. This is what we say. Mataji, very sacred thing, not a nasty thing. Mother is so important, she gives you life. So that debt can't even be finished in one lifetime. Of course, if one becomes Krishna conscious, then you can clear all your debts, but materially it's not possible within one lifetime to clear such a debt. But spiritual master relationship is eternal relationship. But again, disciple, if he's a nonsense, he can destroy that relationship. If he deliberately breaks it, that's his great misfortune. And to think that Srila Prabhupada can't give one the greatest gift of Krishna consciousness, that's already the most unfortunate person. To see Srila Prabhupada in such a diminished way is such an offense by any disciple.
I have a question.
Yes.
Something about Prabhupada's relatives. Prabhupada's relatives, his wife and children. What Krishna in Krishna consciousness, how they're related to Krishna consciousness. Do you know something?
Little things. I mean, more about his well, starting. And I was going to yesterday when we left off. We were talking about. I was saying how everything Prabhupada did in his life. That's an example how we can live Krishna conscious lifestyle. Because from the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada was showing us that as the devotee from a childhood. And from his childhood, Prabhupada, of course, spoke about his parents with such affection. Prabhupada had so much love for his father, so much love, and he attributed his father for giving him his Krishna conscious life. But he thanked his father. And he would always say, my father only desire whenever anyone would come. At that time, sadhus always making the rounds, so-called sadhus, real sadhus, whatever, different holy persons. So they would come, you'd give a little dakshin, and they would say, they would give blessings. So Prabhupada always said, my father's only desire, he said, you make my son a sincere servant of Srimati Radharani. So that was the only thing he ever asked for. So Prabhupada would always mention that about how his father wanted nothing for him but to be devotee of Srimati Radharani. And his mother, of course, she was a nice Bengali mother, took wonderful care of Srila Prabhupada, a wonderful cook. Prabhupada said he learned how to cook just by watching his mother. He said, my sister, she was expert cook. He said, my mother taught her how to cook everything. He said, I'm also expert cook. He said, but I learned just by watching. So that was Prabhupada was being a little, showing how his intelligence. He said, just by watching her as a child, he just watched her in the kitchen. I'm sure it wasn't all the time, but he was saying, just by watching her, I learned how to cook. So he was saying how good he was just by observing that. So, and with his father also, Prabhupada would speak about his own childhood, and I had told many times, he would say how his mother, she would make him anything. Whenever Prabhupada wanted, he wanted something to eat, he would just say she would make it. But then sometimes, if it was late at night, Prabhupada, he would ask, puri was his favorite thing. Prabhupada said, until I was a grahasta, for many years, he said, I never ate a chapati. He said to him, he said, chapatis just they were for, poor people. He said, I had to have puris, never ate chapati. So he would ask sometimes in the evening, he would ask for puris and sabji, puri and vegetable. So he said, one night, he asked his mother, I want, puris, and she said, it's too late. And she was thinking it wasn't good for him. She says, it's too late. She says, I'll make you some puffed rice, some buri, puffed rice and peanuts and chunks. And Prabhupada was never one to, change his mind like that. And he was from a child, he was a very strong personality. So he said, no. He said, I want puris. So his mother, being a mother, she wasn't going to give in. So Prabhupada's telling me this story while I'm giving him a massage one night in his room. And Prabhupada just lying there very peacefully speaking and remembering his childhood. Prabhupada's memory was, flawless. So again, she said no. And as often would happen in all situations, there's always like 3 times, there's always this back and forth 3 times. I've experienced this with Prabhupada so many times. He would say no, no, always 3 times. Then whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So again, his mother's second time, and she said no. And Prabhupada was, and Prabhupada just said, I want puris. And then Prabhupada said, and then my father said, if he wants puris, give him puris. And then he looked at me and he said, perhaps my father knew. And then he just closed his eyes and just kept massaging. So that was it. That was his statement. That was the big revelation. He said, perhaps my father knew. So what did his father know? What was he saying?
A pure devotee, a personal friend to Krishna.
He knew what Prabhupada was going to do, what his future was. He knew that Prabhupada was the person. Because what he was saying in that short little statement was, perhaps my father knew I was the person who was going to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's prediction, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prediction, spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world in 10 years. This is what the statement meant.
Or maybe his father knew that he was really stubborn. Maybe his father just knew that he was really stubborn.
Well, we could say that. He said it to me another time when he was talking about the society, and he said the same thing. He said, perhaps my father knew. So perhaps his father knew. He didn't say his father knew. He said perhaps he knew, but Prabhupada knew. Prabhupada knew he was the person who was spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world. He knew he was the person that had to do it. He knew he was the person who was given this service. He wasn't unaware of it. He doesn't speak about it out of humility. He sees everything as the mercy of Guru and Krishna. But Prabhupada was very aware that he was in this emergency situation where he had to ask any disciple to do anything at any time, and he wanted him to do it. Whether it was man, woman, child, grahasta, sannyasi. He asked his disciples to do, inhuman things they weren't capable of. And he said, there's no such thing as impossible. And this is how Prabhupada saw things. Nothing was impossible to do. So this was his parents. And his sister, Prabhupada loved his sister very much. Pishima, his little sister. Pishima means auntie. Her name was Bhavatarini. And I first met her in 1973 in Calcutta. And she was a widow. She was dressed in white, Bengali style sari, which were 10 meters of cloth wrapped around her, And when you would first see her, you would almost faint because she looked like Prabhupada. She had a face that looked like Prabhupada. She had heavy black glasses, and of course she was shorter and heavier, wider than Prabhupada. But she had that same look as Prabhupada. And she loved her brother very, very much. So whenever he came, once he started coming back to India, wherever she could be, she would come and she'd just sit. Even Prabhupada was speaking in English all the time, it didn't matter. She'd come into the room, she'd offer obeisances, just like all we did. She would, take her a little time, she would get down, she'd offer her respects, and then she'd sit down. And she just liked to be around her brother. It was her brother in her situation to have a natural love for Srila Prabhupada. She had this natural love for him. And she would cook for him all the time whenever he came. And she had this completely transcendental understanding about him. She said, Prabhupada, he can digest nails if he wants. She knew he was completely transcendental. So that there wasn't any restriction, because we would restrict certain things sometimes, Prabhupada eating, because we were concerned about his health, and she would get mad at us because she would cook. Use lots of mustard oil, which is very heavy. Mustard oil, very heavy. And we would, no, because we only use ghee in the temples. Mustard oil was just for massage. You didn't put it in your mouth. You didn't fry things, but everything she did with mustard oil. Fried kachuris in mustard oil. Made all the chonzas in mustard oil. Made a shukta, which she liked so much. So Prabhupada liked all these things. So if we would try to stop, and she said, he can digest nails. But that was his sister. You talk about others. Any other questions? Prabhupada certainly knew, his father certainly knew Prabhupada's stubbornness as a child. That was a given. That wouldn't have been a perhaps. Perhaps he knew. That he certainly knew. Perhaps means in the future. Perhaps he knew something that would happen in the future. Otherwise, same thing with his father when he went to market. And Prabhupada wanted the gun. So his father bought him the toy gun. And as soon as he put it in his hand, he was, holding it, and then he saw he had an empty hand. So then he looked at his father and said, I need another gun. And his father said, you have, I just got you a gun. Just be happy. And he wasn't. He got two hands. He wanted a gun for each hand. And Prabhupada told this story again while he was getting massaged at night. He was just completely just went back into his childhood, just like it was happening. He just started saying. So again, this went back and forth. So Prabhupada insisted. He said, I have to have another gun. But his father said, no. Sometimes fathers can be like that too. He said, so then he said, I became very upset. He said, and I laid on the ground. What he said, he didn't use the word, but he did it, what we would call a tantrum. He said, I laid on the ground and I banged my head and my hand to the ground. He said, you see this scar? He said, it's from that time. Imagine. And then his father got him the other gun. So this is Srila Prabhupada. This was his determination for whatever he wanted. You see this? Yeah. Reminder. So to sit with him, hear this person, this transcendental personality, Krishna Loka, spread Krishna's name all over the world, to hear him speak in these ways. To me, that was more impressive than all the lectures that he gave. Was it this person was so wonderful and so sweet and so loving and so kind to be able to share these things. Sometimes I would sit and think, I'm the only person in this room. Why is he telling me? I would think, why is he telling these things to me? Who am I? I'm no one. And he was sharing these things. And I would think, why? I think, who is this person? Who's this wonderful person ready to share what's least significant?
Perhaps he knew that you would see.
Perhaps he knew, but someday I would share it all. Perhaps he knew. I didn't know. I never imagined there would be a time when everybody wanted to know these things, to hear about this person. As much as I enjoyed it, that others would enjoy it even more than I could understand. Yes. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like you said, that the personal relationship, the association, the contact was much more valuable than all the lectures. So, although
For me.
yeah, and I think many of us who haven't like met him personally, so luckily we have some evidence, some films,
Yes.
some like little
Yeah.
things where we can see what kind of person he was. Like we say a lot of things about internet, but there are some nice films in internet,
Absolutely.
in YouTube about Prabhupada
I agree. Yeah.
and the person Prabhupada,
Yes.
like
And-
how he is doing things,
Mhm.
and that's so valuable. I don't know how you even got it into your mind that you should film them, because they were this like normal everyday activities he was doing, and you couldn't know. I mean, maybe you knew, maybe it was super
Yes.
soft.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. It was Prabhupada himself. One of the first things when Prabhupada's people started to come to 22nd Avenue, the first thing he requested was a recorder. It wasn't even a cassette recorder, tape recorder, to record his lectures. Again, Prabhupada knew what was going on. The very first time he was speaking, he wanted it recorded so that we could all hear it all the time. And from the very beginning, he was recording his lectures. This was his idea. Wasn't it these people who weren't even disciples yet, they were coming, but they thought, hey, maybe we should get a machine, Prabhupada. Swamiji. And Prabhupada said, get a recorder. He wanted to record his lectures. He had big ideas of what was going to happen. You can see in his letters when he writes, this movement is expanding, it's growing, we're going to require so many sets of deities. And he had that determination that nothing was impossible. And but I read these videos. Yadavari has a video series, and I watch them just to see Prabhupada move.
Yeah.
To me, it's just it's moving. You see, he doesn't move like anyone else. He doesn't carry himself like anyone else. To see the way he walks, on a morning walk, or to see the way he offers his obeisances to the deity, see the way he holds his head, focused, no distractions of any kind, not concerned about what's going on over here, who's doing this or that. Just a sense of purpose in everything he does. The consciousness, and that's what we say, the difference between, yesterday, you can look at the sun or you turn away from the sun. Everything Prabhupada did had that focus, consciousness of Krishna. And you can see that, if you have any ability to discern, you can see Prabhupada's always conscious of what he was doing. There wasn't any stumbling in anything, in his walking, his talking, his movements. To watch him open up his white bag, had a zipper as his briefcase, we call it the white bag, just to see his hand, how he used to grab. It was just fascinating to see. Everything was just, everything you just fell in love with the way he did it. To see him put on tilak, watch the video.
Yes, I've seen
Prabhupada putting on tilak. And then you think, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're like, Prabhupada, it was done with devotion, it was meditation, it was yoga, it was connection with Krishna. So everything, every moment. So that you can see, it's nice to see that with our eyes, get an understanding. To hear him speak his lectures. I always say, when I listen to his lectures, the first thing pops in my head is urgency. Prabhupada speaks with this. It's an urgent message. And that's for so many reasons, including the fact that he wasn't going to be around that long, and he just wanted, it's like he wanted to get each one of us and just shake us until, do you understand? Do you understand this philosophy? Do you understand this? Do you understand you're not going to be here very long? The next thing is about. Prabhupada used to tell us this when I was 19 years old. He was on the Vyasa-san saying, at any moment you could be gone. And I'd be thinking, this is what I thought. I'm going to be here a long time. But Prabhupada would say, at any moment, anyone can be gone. You have to take seriously. So I always hear that in his voice when he speaks. Like, please take this philosophy, understand it, practice it. And then I hear his love for Krishna. That's all he talks about. You can't stop talking. This is, when you have a lover, this is what you think about them all the time, talk about them all the time. And this is what you hear with Srila Prabhupada. He never stops glorifying Krishna. Never stops. First trying to make us understand we're part and parcel of Krishna, and then we should love Krishna. Very simple. But all these things you can hear it with him. So it's nice to hear the audios, to hear Prabhupada's lectures. Yeah, go ahead.
What about dreams of Srila Prabhupada? Did you say that he's personally? If you
Dreaming about him.
Dreaming?
Mm-hmm. About Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, why not? I've had a few, I have many dreams, but I've had 3 or 4 where I really feel like he came to me. Other ones, they were just like dreams. Even some of the dreams, I'm his servant, and I don't even have any understanding that Prabhupada left. It's just like I'm kind of, due to past activities, it just pop up. But then there were other ones where, as soon as I see him, I felt he appeared to me.
But sometimes I've dreamt and the dreams are like very real.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some, I mean, it's not, they talk to me. Would you say that?
We can have them. We should, as long as he doesn't tell you to do anything he wouldn't tell you otherwise, we can accept it as an instruction. Many devotees have gotten different instructions. Grand disciples, many of them, they've seen Prabhupada appear to them in a dream. They never even knew Prabhupada, but he directed them, and came to them. Certainly it's possible.
Actually, this Prabhupada Katha, what is going now, it's amazing that he was with him, other devotees also was with him. And actually, it's fantastic to hear. I just cannot imagine how it can be when you will not be here.
Yeah. How
How this Prabhupada Katha can be so, because when you speak, one can see that your eyes go because you was here. but actually, how it can be when someone will start to make Prabhupada Katha just because he has listened to you, but he was never here.
Realization. Well, he's making a video, so you'll be able to see that in the future. But Prabhupada, just like when devotees, this is the importance of association. When devotees get together, it's different than someone's sitting alone. There's an energy that's there with the group of devotees associating. It can make you say, you see in my eyes, but I see in your eyes, you're feeling Srila Prabhupada's presence, You feel some ecstasy. So this can always go on. Is one thing, it's easy to make a connection. You look at me and think, I'm not just telling you a story, I'm relating something that I was there for. So it becomes very easy to make that connection, right? That this happened. There's no question of doubt or wonder. It's there. And actually, our goal is to come to the point, when we talk about topics of Krishna, we have that same understanding. Krishna is right there. And the very first service I performed for Srila Prabhupada 3 months before I became his servant was reading Krishna book to him. And I was just reading stories. But over the course of a few days, and I've told this, I probably told when I was here last year, but over the course of a few days, while I was reading Krishna book, Prabhupada was seeing Krishna book. He was seeing Krishna. For us, it's difficult to make that connection. Krishna's kind of far, seems far away, removed, at least for me. It's very difficult to feel that very presence. But with Prabhupada it isn't, because I was with Prabhupada. But this is the transcendental nature of Krishna consciousness. Krishna is right here. Krishna is right there. They're right there. It's a question of realization. Prabhupada said, he can talk to you. You can talk to him and he'll talk back to you. But you have to qualify yourself. And it's not cheap. But we have to strive for that. First we have to have faith. And that faith comes from, chanting vow. Faith really develops association with those that have realization. That's again, when I say, it's only my association with Prabhupada, I have faith. This person, he's Krishna conscious. He's with Krishna. No doubt, So I know that that's there just by being with him. But that potential is there. We're reading Bhagavatam. Prabhupada said, Krishna is in every word. Well, who's given us all these words? Prabhupada. So how's Krishna in every word? Unless Prabhupada knows Krishna. He can give us Krishna. Every one of his books, every word of these books. So you just have to keep believing, keep chanting, keep following, and gradually the faith increases to the point realization will be there. And we become inspired, and we can inspire others. This is what Prabhupada inspired everyone. The pure Krishna consciousness. He inspired people who had no capability. Like he said, you can't do anything. You're so fallen, you're such malechas, so much intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex. We had no qualification to do anything to serve Krishna in any capacity. But through the medium of Srila Prabhupada and his chanting, miracles happen. And it's still going on. And the more we stick to what Prabhupada has given us, without diluting it, the more potency will be there. But we have to have faith, whether it's now or in the future, whatever is necessary, Krishna can provide for us now and in the future. Krishna is there. And Prabhupada will always be there in this God. Will always be directing as well. I don't know how, but he will.
I was just thinking of in this connection that, for example, Jesus Christ, he appeared like 2,000 years ago, but still he made such a great impression on people, and at that time they did not have all these videos and recordings. It was just a little bit written somewhere on some paper rolls, whatever. And so I was just thinking that those who are after Krishna and to come in contact
ISKCON. I mean, Prabhupada, of course, it is fantastic if we hear directly from those who have been with Srila Prabhupada, but I think he will always be alive in some form. And those, if you read his books, and because he is in his books very strongly, and we have so much documents, films, and fantastic films that Prabhu was doing, and so on. I mean, I think he will be kept alive by those who are sincere.
And I see many maturing in their Krishna consciousness, my godbrothers, my godsisters, even grandchildren becoming very fixed up in Krishna consciousness, able to do wonderful things. That's the key. Purity is the force, which pushes everything on. But the other side, that's why we have to get out of this place. Prabhupada said things won't get better in the future. You want to get out of this material world. He said, don't come back and take birth again. Kali Yuga is going to progress so quickly. I see so quickly within my lifetime, in the West, has degenerated so much from the simplicity. Maya was there. If you look back and you see things from the past, whether movies or pictures or whatever it is, music, everything was all Maya. It was much simpler, very intense. This world is a very scary place, very scary. And we should try to get out of here as quickly as we can and develop these communities like sanctuaries from the material world, as places of Vaikuntha, where devotees are together. Okay, one more question. Go ahead.
Can we be confident that even when we start belonging to Srila Prabhupada's family, that Srila Prabhupada will also do for us a service, like dragging us back, even though we may not be directly his disciples, if we don't break this relationship ourselves? Can one have this confidence?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, this is one of the dreams I had. Prabhupada said to me, he said, I've started this branch of the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. This ISKCON is a branch, and the tree, Vaishnavism is there. And he described it so nicely, and he said, I've started this branch, and he said, and it will continue in that way. Everything that goes on will go on through Prabhupada. He's the very strong, stable branch. All these other will go on through his disciples, his grand disciples, but it's always through him. So that connection has to be there through him. And the connection is always there because of his books. This is why he stressed his books so much, getting these books out. And that's why it was one of his, we go back to the beginning, why he stopped wanting people to send him letters. Because he said, I have to be able to concentrate on translating these books, because they'll always be there. So there's always that person, whatever is in between, who can read the book, and if he's sincere, he'll be able to understand. I told you yesterday about this Indian man, 64 years old. By reading Prabhupada's books, everything became crystal clear to him, he said, just completely clear. He said he was raised, his parents and mother, they used to worship Krishna deity, had no idea what was going on. He grew up, had regular karmi life, and not following any principles. He read Prabhupada's book, everything became clear. This is just a few years ago. He's over 60 years old. And he just loves to read. I stayed at his house for the night before I came here. Got all separate places. It's just a temple room. He's in there in the morning chanting his rounds. His wife's next door. She doesn't understand at all. I said, just don't worry about it. I said, she'll be okay. He said, she's vegetarian now. I said, that's what I said, fine. I said, you just do what you're doing. He just wants to read all the time and serve the devotees. I said, anybody you know, you just want to serve the devotees. So this is through Prabhupada's books. It wasn't by another means. There's so many stories like that. So that can go on anytime. We have a connection with Srila Prabhupada. You know, we can't say Prabhupada's not right there for anyone. Okay. Go on.
Can I ask one more? It's a little bit related to that actually. Like, so one should be confident that one has Srila Prabhupada's love, even no matter what one does, kind of one can be very fallen for Srila Prabhupada, very kind and encouraging. But what does it mean is breaking the relationship with the spiritual master?
What does
Mean this breaking the relationship?
Prabhupada says in one letter, if one deliberately disregards the spiritual master's order, he can break that relationship. So what that means, there's of course things, accidents, Prabhupada talks about accidental fall down, so many things, and how long an accidental fall down can be. I'm not one to judge anyone or anything. When one devotee asked Prabhupada, I said, Prabhupada, Ajamil, in Bhagavatam, I talk about Ajamil, he said, he was 80 years old, finally, when for 60 years, he was fallen. And Prabhupada said, what's 60 years? So, it's not our business. We have to take care of ourselves. It's not our business to try to figure out everybody else's program and whether they're Krishna conscious or fallen or Maya or whether they're disconnected or connected. We just try to maintain our connection to whatever degree we can. According to our capacity, we have to do as much as we can. And it's also part of this whole, ISKCON society. If you want to give Krishna to everyone understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's wonderful. If they can just come to that conclusion. It doesn't matter if they're following 4 regular principles, chanting 16 rounds, just understanding I'm servant of Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then you can bring in all these other things, Varnashram, and everyone's on so many different levels. But Vaishnava, pure Vaishnava, he's just doing the service. And he's not affected by all these other things. Well, he's not doing this, and I'm not, this person's doing like this, and this one's doing this. He just wants to serve Krishna and seeing everyone engaged in Krishna service. So in that way we can spread the society to everyone and be able to have, different layers of temple where everything is being followed on very strict levels and still allowing people to come in to do whatever it is they do, make a little offering on the altar, offer their obeisances, and not beat them up saying, well, if you're not chanting 16 rounds, you have no business coming in here. That's not, one has to be able to see, what's 60 years? Like we said, we meet, bona fide guru in 10,000 lifetimes?
It's a blessing.
What's 10,000 lifetimes? That's a blessing. We hope for better blessings than that. I want 10,000 lifetimes. But it's better than saying you'll never meet one.
I think what you tried to say also the situation for grand disciples, sometimes it's a conflict of loyalty to your guru and to Prabhupada. And stepping
it can be because he's only guru if he's loyal to his guru.
Yes.
Otherwise he's not guru.
Yeah. But we can maybe sometimes feel a little more tinge of extra love for Prabhupada than we can give to our guru.
That has to be worked out between guru and disciple. That's what I said to this man who's 64 years old.
Yeah.
He has a whole lifetime of experience behind him. And he's attracted to Prabhupada. He's completely attracted. I said, you have to find, you pray, I said to Prabhupada, Krishna, for a spiritual master who will allow you to continue the way you need to do. To have your relationship with Prabhupada that you have. And at the same time, I said, you need to become humble because you're a very proud man. And there's only one way to become humble, to take orders from someone. And that's the purpose of accepting a guru. Because then somebody tells you, you can do this and you can't do this. And if you don't accept the Guru, it means you're not ready to follow someone's instructions. Oh, I'll just read the book and do what it says in there. But you're not prepared to actually surrender. This is what Prabhupada said. This is why one has to take initiation, because you have to learn how to become humble. And that means someone's going to tell you what to do and what not to do. And this is what we all went through with Srila Prabhupada, like that devotee. I don't want to do that. So this is what you should do. Crushes that pride. I can know what to do. I can do what I want. No, you can't. You want to go to spiritual work, you learn how to become humble. You want to learn how to become humble, you bow down before spiritual master. So that has to be there. Or just stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.